CNC Basics, video 1 of 2, coming right up. Hello, I'm Henry with Woodworking by LPI. Welcome back to my channel. You know, I get asked a lot about a lot of things, and I'm trying to put out some videos out on the channel to kind of help out the beginner and for somebody who's looking to get into wood signs, either as a business or as a hobby. I've been going through the tools about the shop and some techniques and things, and we have a lot more videos coming. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about the CNC and the wonderful things that the CNC can do for you. It really helps out on a lot of workload, but I want you to consider a few things before we get into the CNC. CNCs come in different varieties and different options, just like anything else. And kind of look at it as if you're going to a car dealership. That's the only example I can think of at the time. But to think about that, and you know, you can get the baseline car, then you can upgrade depending upon your purpose. You know, come to think of it, I think I used the car example in another video. But anyway, so depending upon the purpose that you're looking at with regard to the CNC that you're wanting, that'll be the model that you pick. I particularly, when I started with the CNC, I did a lot of research up front on different models. There's all kind of CNCs out there for different purposes. Some do specifically metal, some do specifically wood, some do a combination of. Additionally, excuse me, you have the more professional ones, which are the more industrial size, that do all kind of things. They do water, they do welding, they do cutting. So we're not going to go in any of that. So basically, I want to let you know there are a lot of things for a CNC, and I'm going to explain some of the basics of the CNC here today in video 1. This is going to be a 2-part series, and show you what the CNC is, how I use it, the model I chose, and understand how I use it. Now, there's a lot more options I can tack onto this, but I don't have them here. I may or may not add them on as time goes by. But from a business perspective, I have to consider, you know, is it worth the cost for me to purchase extra added items and accessories? Because you can do all kinds of stuff. And I'll mention that as we go through the video. Okay, so let's get started in looking at the CNC. All right, I'm going to take you along here with me just a little bit. And I kind of want you to understand that this is a big investment. Depending upon the size of wood that you wood signs rather that you carve, it depends upon or that rather will determine the size of bed that you go for your wasteboard, and it can get costly. So to kind of give you a rough cost of the one that I chose, which was the Shapeoko, it baselined out at about as of the recording of this video, somewhere in the realm of $1,700 to $1,800. It does include a router, but when I bought it, I had an option of going to another router. Excuse me, and I'll explain that along the way. But that's a serious investment of money into your hobby or your business. And I guess the reason I'm accenting this so much is because I want you to understand that CNCs do cost a considerable amount of money, and I just want you to know that up front. They're great at what they do, but they cost money up front. Now, if you can get your return on investment on it fairly quickly, it's a wonderful thing. Okay, so enough business stuff. Let's get into the fun stuff. So let's look at the CNC. Okay, so here's my CNC. And as you can see, it's a Shapeoko, what they call XXL brand, or model rather. And it has a 36 by 36 base, or the wasteboard down here in the bottom. Okay, however, it's only able to really cut efficiently a 33 by 33. Now, I might have those numbers wrong. It might be 33 by 33 and only cut 32. But basically what I'm saying is that the area here is the area you're going to cut. And it's roughly around 30 to 33 inches. Okay. Now, let me walk through as to what this is. Okay, so you have two arms here, one on the left and one on the right. and then you have one that goes across the back. Okay, so you have the X and the Y and the Z, and the Z is the height, and the X and the Y is this direction and this direction. Okay, now this is all generated by the code that you create, what we call G code, out of a computer program. And I use a software called Vectric, or brand name Vectric, and it's called VCarve Pro. And that software is a little pricey as well, but you know, it does phenomenal things. Okay, so if you're interested in that, and I'm not sponsored by Vectric by no means, but if you're interested in that software and you're just starting out, there are a lot of open source software, free software that you can use. But if you're a novice at this, Vectric would definitely be something you might want to look into. The VCarve Pro is a little more expensive, but it does so much. They have a more basic version that comes free with the Shapeoko. And that's a software you can do basic things in for letters and carvings and things of that nature, just on your baseline basic stuff. But it doesn't do anything in more grander detail. So the Vectric software, I definitely recommend the VCarve Pro. Okay, or they have Aspire too, which is next. If you go to vector.com and you look up and search for VCarve Pro, you can see the different options on there. But it's a phenomenal software. And if you're interested in something to watching is how do I design that and how I use it, let me know in the comments. I'll see what I can do about putting a baseline video together so you can see what I'm talking about. But I generate that design and I provide my proof for my customer. And after they approve that design, because a lot of my signs are personalized, then I come out here and then I carve it. Well, I feed that code into my laptop. Okay, so let me see if I can get you the laptop here. Okay, so I had to buy this laptop extra, and it is a simple Dell that I got, has no bells and whistles on it whatsoever. It's a basic Windows 10 operating system. I think it has 4 gig of RAM in it, and that's really all I use this for. I don't use it for anything fancy. I use it strictly to run the CNC. And as I'm letting you know costs as we go through here, this laptop here was right around the $300 mark. Okay, it's nothing, like I said, nothing fancy. So I put that software on my desktop, or my my laptop, and that came free with this. And it controls it, and that's a software called Carve Motion, which is right over here's the icon, and I'll show you up here as to what that software looks like inside. So I take my G code, and I come in here and I load it. And how I do this is I use a memory stick that I download from my VCarve in the house, and I bring it out here to the shop, and it has the G code in it. And then I load it up here inside Carve Motion, okay? And I click on New File, and then it lists all the files here that I have. And these are all G code. As you can see, it has the G code extension over here. And then I load that up, and then right here it loads up the file. And then I go over here to jog, and then I move based upon Y and X and Z, as I mentioned. So your X is this direction, your Y is that direction, and then your Z is up and down. And those are the 3 basic things that a CNC operates off of. And the G code, really, if you get into it, if you want to look at it, the G code is plots of that X, Y, and Z. And I could do probably a 2-3 hour video on what it looks like in that G code and all, but you know why? There's so much simpler software out there to use. But maybe, I don't know, I guess it depends on your thought process. If you really want to get into it and you want to understand the basics before you go to a little more of a Cadillac level, if you will, which is where the VCarve Pro would be, that might be something you look into. There's a lot of open source software out there you can look at. If you just Google G code software, and but I'm getting off track here. Let me go back over here. So you know what the laptop is. This is your basic Windows 10 operating system, and I've loaded the Carve Motion software, which comes with this when you purchase this. And then you operate in here, and this is where you move around this carriage, because it moves this way and it moves this way, and that is plotted by hitting these buttons with the mouse. Okay, so let me go over here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I want to go, for example, -X, and the speed is really, really low. Let me change the speed on here. So I can go to the left, and I can go to the right, and I can go down, and I can go up, as well as I can go forward. And I'm controlling it all by here. Okay, so there are different options down through here. You can set it, I'm using millimeter. You can also set it to inch. You can set this to also a specific automatic spindle, which comes on, which is an option I don't have. Every time you set, you'll have to zero it out. And zero it out meaning, see these things here are set to numbers right now. When you click on this, it takes you to a screen where you can zero it out. And you click zero all here. And majority of the time when you're cutting a job, you do it at the bottom left corner, or you do it within the center of the board, known as a datum. Now I know there's a lot of fancy terms I'm going to be throwing out here, but the datum is the bottom right hand corner. And once you set your bit down here at the bottom right hand corner, you set the height, you know, for the X, Y, and Z, and then you zero it all out. So you click on zero and you see it zeroes it all out, and you click on done. And then I'm going to go back over here and click run, and it says start job. Now, okay, that's a lot of information to go through really quickly. But I want you to understand, this really isn't that complicated. It's like anything, you know, when you ride a bike or roller skate or ski or whatever. I mean, you know, once you learn it the first time, you get better at it the more you use it. Because I was scared to death of this thing when I first got it. I thought, my gosh, I've spent almost $2,000 on the machine, software, and everything else, and am I really going to mess this up? Well, thankfully I haven't. Although there are a few battle wounds on this thing. I'll show you those as well. Okay, so keeping with the basics theme, you know the components. So we have the CNC machine, which I got from Shapeoko, and I got an XXL version of this, which is the biggest version they have. And then I got a laptop to operate the operating system software, which is this software here, Carve Motion. And this does come free with the CNC. Okay. And then I had the option of buying a DeWalt router, which is what I got. And the reason I got the DeWalt router was simply because it's a readily available router that I could buy at Lowe's or Home Depot and replace it. You can also replace the brushes in that, and that's something I can show you down the road if you like. Let me know in the comments. And it's a really easily available part that I can go get, because parts on these things are proprietary usually, and it takes a while to get them in. Now Shapeoko or Carve 3D or Carve 3D, I think, is the maker of this CNC. They are really good, and they have really good service and support, and they get the parts to you fairly quickly, usually within a few days if you order something and it breaks down. But the router, I'm kind of picky about that. I want to be able to have variable speed, and I want to be able to get another one really quickly if I need to, as well as the brushes that I replace inside of it. So that was my personal choice, but it does come with a router that they offer as an option when you go to look at this. So let's continue going on through the tour here. Okay, so let's look at the sidebar. You have this box over here. This is your controller box. This is kind of the brains of the CNC, and this plugs into the laptop, as well as you see it has a whole bunch of wires here that feed into this and then runs out. And what it does basically is it runs these motors. I don't know if you can see that motor right there. It has a motor there, has a motor over there, and it has a motor there, and then back here on the back it has another motor. Hope you can see that. Okay, and that's what controls all the motion of it. This one uses belts as opposed to a metal screw. Belt across there, belt across there, and there's also a belt in here which allows us to move up and down. Okay, so it is a cheaper version of most of the CNCs you might see out there. There are a lot of ingenious guys out there who have created their own at home and done a do-it-yourself CNC, and my hat's off to them, because I imagine that takes quite a bit. I used to play with electronics when I was a kid and build weird funky things. I think this would be at my limitation of building something like this, so I kind of went the easier route and just bought one. It's so much simpler. And like I said, I'm an old country boy. I like simple. So we'll continue on the tour here. Okay, so looking at the board right here, you can see it's broken up into different sections, and that allows you to put these tracks in. Maybe if I put the camera down here so you can see. broken up in these sections, and then you put these tracks in, and these tracks allow your hinges here to move back and forth. And this is what holds your board down when you put your board in. And you can see there's 4 of them. It allows me to do different sizes. And then you notice you have these marks here. These marks here are for the standard boards that I do. I do the 12 by 24 horizontal as well as vertical. And then I set it in there, and then I measure it out to make sure that the distance is right on the bottom and it's square before I carve the job. Because I don't want to have a carving unit that kind of goes off to the side. And has that happened? Yes, it has. Thankfully, like I said, you learn your lessons along the way. You do, your little mistakes and everything along the way. All right. A few more things in here, and then, like I said, we'll wrap this up. I don't want to make it a real long video. Of course, I try never to make it a real long video. But I'm trying to give you the basics. Okay, so you see this little section right here that's a different color. Right here. Now, this is something I didn't know about. This is something I didn't know about when I first started carving with the CNC. Was I didn't know that this bed, right here, I didn't know that this bed had to be flat. I'm just carving right away. Everything's cool. I've learned the software, yay. And guess what? I'm noticing that one side of the board is deeper than the other on the carve. I thought, well, that's weird. Why is it deeper on one side? I mean, it wasn't really a whole lot enough to notice it until you start really looking at it. And I was like, okay, why is it deeper on one side than the other? Well, it's because the bed that this board sits on was not level. Well, how do you make it level? Well, you use a humongous bit on the CNC router over here. And I think I have that bit. Actually, I do. See if I can do this here with one hand. So you use a humongous bit to flatten it, and that's that bit right there. It has a straight edge on it. You mount it on the bottom of the CNC here, then you run a square job. You run a square job to flatten this and make it perpendicular to the router. Well, as with a lot of things, we learn things by trial and error. And when I flattened this bed, all my signs became flat and all the carvings were the same level. Amazing how that works. So if there's a lot of documentation out there on these little things, it's kind of hard to find. So as I'm showing you the CNC, I'm doing a 2-part series right now. I'm showing you kind of like how it's set up and what it is right now to give you more information. So if you're considering buying a CNC, that you kind of know more what you're getting into. But if you do research out there, you're going to research for days to find little bits and pieces and tricks of the trade. So I'm hoping to solve some of those problems for you. So this is part 1 of the 2-part video. I ran here almost about 20 minutes, and I really didn't want to make the video that long, but hopefully this was a little helpful on your consideration. So you're looking at about $250, $300 for the laptop. The software comes free. The XXL Shapeoko, which is the one I use. There's other brands. There's Inventables and such that you can buy. But this one here was right at kissing $2,000, depending upon the model that you get, the router that you get with it and such. There's always options. There's always accessories you can buy. Then I had to build my own workbench, which I mentioned in my shop tour. So hopefully this was helpful to you. And I'll put you down here. So, see? So it's kind of like talking to an old friend. So I hope a little bit of this information was helpful for you. With the software and all, you're looking a little over $3,000, $3,300, because the software initially that I use, I believe was $1,200 when I first used it, or first bought it. Then there was an upgrade. Don't quote me on the price for the Vectric software. You'll have to go out and look at that one at vectric.com. But I want to say it was right around $1,000, or a little under $1,000. So hopefully a little bit of this information was helpful. You're looking at about a $3,000 investment to start off. No options that you could put on it. Let me mention a few of the options here real quick. You can put a laser on this. You've seen some of the laser boxes out there, you know, the C400 or C40 or 40C, some Japanese brand that they're selling out there at fairly cheap. Then there's a few other laser boxes that you can use that are in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. Well, for this one here, you can add a laser on for about $700, and you can do all kind of engraving and lasers with it. And it's something I'm considering. I don't know if there's enough market and enough time, or not time, but enough market out there for me to justify that. But I'm considering it. So, cheap option, you can add a laser to this. It also does rotary. I know, kind of freaked me out too. There's an attachment you can do, excuse me, for rotary. I'm not sure if it's this model specifically, but CNCs do rotary. And what I mean by rotary is, I mean, it turns it like this, and you know, that you've seen the big machines, you know, they, yeah. Okay. It also comes with an option you can buy for a dust boot that you can put on the bottom of it to suck all that dust off and everything, which I don't have. And that's another option, and I think that's around $100 some odd also. So, I mean, there are many options. You can get different clips, different tracks, all kind of stuff. And I didn't even go into, you know, the infamous probe. This is an awesome little tool right here, and I'll go into that in the next video. But it's like anything, folks. I mean, you buy the baseline and you can just add and add and add and add. It's kind of like chrome in your car, you know, it gets a little pricey. So where's your limit? So hopefully this was helpful, and I hope it was good information for you to kind of start off with the CNC. It's a little bit of a different version. I've seen different people talk about the CNC in their introduction. I kind of wanted to break it into 2, maybe 3 videos to kind of give it a little more in depth and kind of like an over the fence neighbor talk, so you can understand a little more information about it and be down to earth about it. So I'm Henry with Woodworking by LPI, and I hope this was a little helpful, and I look forward to see you maybe part 2, possibly part 3, depending upon the length. I'll see you in the next video.